first agenda item, Old North Foundation. We have Steve Ayers here representing the foundation.
Thank you. I've brought several sets of drawings, and I'll just hand those out rather than do it with the computer. Thank you very much for your ongoing support of Old North and the renovation work we're trying to do there. The last time I appeared before you was to ask for your support for a Community Preservation Act grant, which you gave us, but we were up against some very good projects in the North End, and we were not funded this go-round, but they very much liked our proposal and invited us to apply again next fall. So you may see me again next fall looking for your support for that project to work on making our crypt accessible. I'm before you tonight to update you on a proposal you endorsed 3 years ago when we went to the Browne Fund and asked for a design grant to remodel the Washington Garden courtyard, which is the open space to the north side of the church. It's an area that hasn't gotten a lot of attention. It's wonderful greeting and meeting space. The inner garden there has been dominated by what was an overgrown crabapple tree and not very usable. So with the design grant that we did receive from the Browne Fund, we redesigned the space. We held several community meetings for abutters. We have one for educators with several of the teachers from the Elliott School joined us for that. And they made a number of significant suggestions which we have incorporated into our design. Our goals for the space is to make it into what can be an outdoor classroom space with enhanced seating for both visitors and folks from the neighborhood who already come and use some of the tables that we put out on the campus just to have a nice quiet place for lunch or for relaxation. We also need to bring the courtyard as well as actually the entire campus eventually up to ADA code. The bricks in there now are not even enough to meet code. So those are our goals. The focus of the Browne Fund grant was for the central design feature of the garden, which was a water fountain on which we will inscribe the poem Paul Revere's Ride. The purpose of that is that will give us a place that we can bring school groups and teach them a little bit more about the poem and about its context. Most people think of it as not quite accurate history of the beginning of the American Revolution, but very few people understand that the poem was written on the eve of the Civil War, and it mistold the history to make some political points and to encourage young men to join the Union Army. We want to be able to teach that. And we really need a space where students can read the poem, work with curriculum that we're developing to learn more about the ride. So with your support, the Browne Fund gave us the design grant. And beyond just having meetings with neighborhood residents and teachers, we also last summer or last spring worked with Brighton High School, and we were actually a field study project for their art classes. And we brought all their art classes in to design put their own gloss on the design of the space, and that was particularly focused on the 19th century history. So we gave the students a number of quotes from abolitionists who interacted with Longfellow and told them to think about where they might put them in the space. So it was a wonderful project and a wonderful way to interact with the Boston public school system. So out of all these processes, two major things that we've changed from when we first came before you. Our initial idea was that we would put the poem kind of on a water wall on the rear wall facing three Unity Court. And with particularly the input from the teachers, we decided to move it in the opposite direction and to place it so that people reading the poem would be facing the church. And so what we've come up with a design rather than a water wall is a water table. Will be like an oversized guitar pick with a reflective surface and a slanted side that the poem will be etched on, and it'll be positioned in such a way that while you're reading the poem, you'll actually see a reflection of the bell tower and the church in the surface. So we think from an artistic standpoint, it's going to be very, very cool. The other thing that we heard a lot from, particularly from abutters, is can you save that crabapple tree? We are attempting to do that. We actually had an arborist volunteer his time and his company to come in and gave it a very radical trimming, and we're going to see how it responds to that. But we had enough time in the design process before we actually need to make a decision that was worth doing that. So we're going to try to save that crabapple tree, which will also help provide shade in there in the summertime. So what we're before you tonight for is we're now ready to go back to the Browne Fund and ask for fabrication funding. It's a much larger grant. The initial grant was for a little under $50,000. We're looking for something in the $300,000 range now, which will pay for the fountain part of the project. The overall project is about $1 million. Right now, we're about 40% towards our goal. We still have some work to do, but a Browne Fund grant would take us a lot closer to our goal, and hopefully so we can go under construction within a year or so. The rest of the garden, we're moving all the plant material to the edges. We're putting them in raised planters, so there are seat walls, more seating there. We'll put some tables back there. And then at that narrow entrance to the garden, we're going to put a smaller artwork. We're working with the same high school art teacher from Brighton High. Is going to put in a kind of half picture, half sculpture there. It's sort of three-dimensional, and it'll have the steeple and Paul Revere in front of it, and some of the lines from the latter part of the poem that people aren't as familiar with, but the ones that really make the political point about the importance of taking care of your country. So we're very excited about all that, and we're looking for your support as we file this grant with the Browne Fund.
Thank you. So what is the Browne Fund?
It's the Edward Ingersoll Browne Fund of the City of Boston. It was a sizable bequest given to the city. It's run out of the Treasury Department, out of their trust department, and it is specifically for public art and gardens in the city of Boston. So we're very much within the guidelines for that.
Is it a competitive grant, or it's just case by case?
No, they do a grant cycle once a year. Applications are due at the end of this week, and they evaluate it. I'm told, and my fingers are crossed, that once they like the project enough to give you design money, they're willing to come back and give you fabrication money. Whether they'll give us the whole dollar amount or not, I don't know. We've gone a good way, and the administrator of the Browne Fund has been working with us throughout the project, so we're optimistic about it.
Are you aware of any other, like, North End people that are applying as well? I mean, only because often the question we get is, you support one, not the other, what's the criteria?
Marie, are you aware of anybody else?
I am not.
Yeah,
I've actually, since I've started NEWNC, the only person I know that's applied to the Browne Fund is the Reverend in the old auction.
Nice.
So. And they have our blessing as well.
Okay, thank you. Any other council members have questions? Anyone for the audience? Phil?
Not
Yeah.
here because you need the community support.
Yeah, they asked for community support. We've already gathered it from our elected representatives and some of our community partners like the Freedom Trail Foundation. And so we're just looking for your support to add to that.
Great, thank you. Does anyone else have a question for Robert? All right, then I'll ask the council to vote.